Hey, everybody, my hope is that this video has a more broad appeal beyond just Marlins fans. In light of Friday's news from Major League Baseball, several key rule changes have been agreed upon for the 2023 season by the Year Joint Competition Committee. So they're calling it as you see right here. This is an example of what baseball is like with a pitch clock. This is from a Midwest League game hosted by Marlins high affiliate Bill Lake Skycar up against Quad Cities River Bandits. That's the Royals affiliate. This broadcast courtesy of MLB TV does a great job setting that up in Beloit. And you'll see immediately above my head quite a bit on the left side of the screen. That's the pitch clock. And 14 seconds in this case, with the bases empty as they were using it in the high central, we're going to have some good time. Plenty of time to go through the particulars of what Major League Baseball was doing. They tested it out in the minor leagues across all levels here in 2022, including a high level, and they're doing something similar moving forward in Major League Baseball based upon the findings there. You're able to see in that first plate appearance between Jake Walters, Marlins prospect, and who is he facing here to lead off the top of the 5th inning? That was Peyton Wilson of Quad Cities. This game is from September 2nd. In Word, just focusing on this happening, letting it ride in real time. This is a half inning, top of the 5th from that game just a week ago. Now I chose this example. There's gonna be some people out there that are going to be overly excited about a pitch clock and showing pretty extreme examples of the time of game and pace of the game based on the minor leagues they've been using it. I think this is just a more real applicable example. I think this is a more relevant middle of the road example. You'll be listening roughly 22 pitches during the course of this video from Walters, and most of them are with runners on the base where pitchers traditionally work a lot slower, and even the pitch count has a longer leash on it. When there are runners on the Major League Baseball version that we'll be seeing next year in 2023, they agreed on a 15-second limit with the bases empty and went up to 20 with runners on. We'll talk about kickoffs as well because that is part of the baseball rule changes moving forward that need to be mentioned. And that will have perhaps not as obvious of an impact as the pitch clock itself. But pickoffs are also bundled up in what was agreed upon by the competition committee as well. Here's what that runner on first. And there he goes. You see the pitch clock goes off as soon as he starts his delivery, right? And they'll be seeing other angles of this coming up that you've already seen them before the pitch clock goes on. Once the pitcher receives the ball, as well when he receives it and has a good feel of the situation. That's when the pitch clock applies to a high fly ball to deep red field, but there is room right there in front of Morning Trek. So that's the first out of the inning. Again, this is just going to be one half ending in real time based upon what actually transpired between these teams. You can look it up yourself in the box score from September 2nd at ABC Supply Stadium. A spoiler alert, that boy won this game at home. And now you see from that pitch clock. It was on camera, so going beyond 20 seconds. That's because another part of this rule as tested in the minors and also being applied to Major League Baseball is that between batters, there's a 30-second limit. I was watching. I think this was on Thursday, and I was watching the Cardinals versus Nationals game Yachty or Molina game where he had a pair of home runs and he calls after both of those. That stuck out to me as an example of really the only downside of potentially having the in-between clock for between batters at 30 seconds. Because he did a curtain call, he had his teammates step out of the box to give them some extra time to address the crowd, and what is going to be one of his final Cardinals' own games. That definitely took more than 30 seconds. And I do wonder whether there will be some umpire's discretion, some judgment calls, allowing extra wiggle room and special situations like that, or whether your teammate will actually have to take a fall for you, and actually need to sacrifice a striker in that situation. I should have mentioned that before for anybody I'm familiar with the pitch clock, the ramifications on the pitcher side. If you don't deliver it in time under that limit you are charged an automatic ball for hitters if you're not ready in the box. A reasonable time slot, as we get a great example here of the start of the pitch clock coming off a foul ball. Or you saw go to 18 seconds, again, with a difference being 20 seconds in the majors when there are runners on base. I do wonder, as I said with Yachty examples like that, after big moments in games, if whether there is some room. I hope this clock isn't super rigid, as we imagined it could be, even though that's what we wanted a lot of situations to move these games along. That's not necessarily appropriate for every situation as another high fly ball, but this one is shallow outfield that's gonna be the second out of the inning. As a reminder, we have a runner on first base. This being a minor league game that had the 14 seconds with the base and 18 seconds with earners on in the major leagues. Beginning next year, it's gonna be 15 seconds with bases empty, 20 seconds with any runners on, and they are also going to have that pickoff limit. Just the detail that I believe this is almost identical to what was used in minor league games like this, limiting pitchers to disengagements per plate appearance, meaning pickoff attempts, or just stepping off the mound itself. For the entire plate appearance, just think about all the major league games you've seen in your life, even in recent years. Or pitcher throws over again, back to back, almost sometimes without even throwing a pitch in between those are going away. Because the penalty if you do try a third pickoff is that the runner automatically advances one base if that pickoff attempt is not successful. With the pitch clock, the potential punishment is an extra ball. But this is even more significant and something that you would think would lead to some more substantial changes in the way that base running works, as we see a pickoff attempt right there. So that's the first one of his played parents. He tried one earlier in the inning for this runner, Peyton Wilson, and he's trying to run here again. So he's got one more during this plate appearance risk-free. But then after that, it puts him in that situation where he's up against the limit. And the runner can recognize that they could take a larger lead than they ordinarily would. You run a risk. Make a third attempt of just giving up the base anyway, if you're not successful. That's one reason why stone bases are way up in the minor leagues compared to the major leagues, especially at the higher level. The Marlins had a guy who spent most of the year at this level in Beloit, and the scene dunya is that he put up ridiculous numbers. Think combined between high A and double A's now stolen over 60 bases over 7,070. It isn't an amazing base-selling year with incredible efficiency. A lot of that helps by the rule changes in the minors. Again, you got to see if you right there have a 30-second pitch clock in between batters, and here's also a 30-second pitch clock. This clock time limit in between for mound visits as well. So that's something that also is being included in the major league rules, setting a 30-second limit for mound visits from coaches. It seemed that they turned on that clock pretty soon after the coach left the dugout. And we're just doing the math in our heads, it should be winding down already. Pretty soon. This whole inning being shown to you in real time as it happened. So that's the entirety of the mound visit, and when the clock expires, that's when the coach has to leave the mound as well. Otherwise facing mild penalty to go along with that. As is mentioned by Major League Baseball, the mound isn't themselves don't count as a disengagement from the rubber, for anybody wondering. So it's different from pickoff attempts, falls into a different category. I'm reading just now a Major League Baseball is going back to the Yachty or Molina example that umpires may provide extra time, if warranted by special circumstances. I don't know if Molina curtain calls at Busch Stadium would fall into that category. I think they might, right? Depends, again, based on the umpire. Umpires, it's up to them. So you can bet, and this is another place where different attempts can distinguish themselves. For better or worse. You'll have plenty, I'm sure, if Angel Hernandez is still around. We'll have some incidents with him where he's just being unnecessarily mean and controversial just because that's his personality. Whereas other guys will be a lot more chill in those circumstances as a hitter after that. He found a ball off of himself, takes an extra moments just to gather himself in between. And so this seems to be a moment. An instance where the UMP afforded him extra time because of a potential injury situation. Yeah, so there the clock just starts again. Fresh clock. That's an example of not being completely rigid and yet still moving the game along at a fast pace. This is relatively long half inning. I think at this point, he's right around 20 pitches, having left to base runners, having recorded 2 outs in his 5th batter of the inning. And yet, this entire game took 2 hours and 27 minutes is a 5-2 final score back on September 2nd, at ABC Supply Stadium. And that's right around the medium timing game for the Sky Carp this year. That's normal to 27 compared to the major leagues, where the type of game on average is still over 3 hours. Just using the Bullet Sky Carp as an example again, they've only had 7 games all year that have reached 3 hours. 7 out of G's with 120 or so, more than 120 games 100 and the ball 100. And 29 as of this recording, and that's gonna be the final out of the inning. So as long as it seems to fly by my standards, by what I'm used to watching a lot of Major League Baseball, Good job at Jake Walters to escape the damage. And thanks for everybody for tuning in. This is a look at what baseball is like with a pitch clock. I'll be coming to Major League Baseball in 2023. Most of the content on this channel is very specifically focused on the Marlins. If you're into that, consider subscribing, and as if you enjoyed this video and this look at what the clock is like, then please leave a like so that we know what to do with our content moving forward.